Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new build in my series, Building Nancy Drew in The Sims 4. Today I am bringing you Jake Hurley's train from Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. Now, this is a build that I've been curious about doing for quite a while, but I wasn't really sure how I was going to execute it or ways that I could make it look like the actual train. The biggest issue is that trains are kind of long. They just have a very long span, especially if we're thinking about the one in the game. And there aren't any lots, even the very biggest lots, that I felt would have enough room for me to do all of the train cars side by side. Another issue was the lack of train tracks, but the most recent expansion pack released for The Sims 4, The Sims 4 Eco Lifestyle, actually did come with these train tracks that you saw me place here from the debug menu. So they aren't a specific object, but they are in the debug menu. So I was able to add some train tracks. And once I kind of realized this, I was like, okay, well, now I have to do the train from Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. I know this is a favorite game for many, so this was kind of an intimidating build for me, just in the sense that I knew a lot of people were excited for this one and were hoping to see this one. So I hope that you enjoy this recreation of it. What I kind of decided to do is have all of the 6 cars that we have from the game separately placed out. So none of the cars are attached to one another. They're all separate. And I kind of imagined that this is the train yard where the train was kept before it went on its little venture to Colorado with the whole crew in Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. So imagine that this is right before the train left. The way the story goes in Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon is that Laurie Gerard's father had this train in the warehouse, or this train was like found, and it was basically in the exact same condition that it was originally. So they found it in the middle of this desert. Nobody was on board the train except a dead engineer. Jake Hurley was missing. It's this whole big mystery, which really adds to the plot of this story. This is a really fantastic mystery just overall. But the idea is that the train was just left completely historical, essentially. It's like a living time capsule. And Laurie's father allowed her to pay to basically have the train kind of restored and into working condition. And I'm imagining that this is the point in time where the restoration has just been completed, and the people who are going to be on the train have been invited, and the train is about to set off on its expedition. The train hasn't been pulled into a train station yet, and the carts haven't yet been connected, but the idea is that it's about to very soon head off on its journey. So this is before the game actually takes place. I'm doing what I've been doing with most of my recent builds, which is kind of what I found out works the best, is that I'm doing the interior floor plan at the same time as I'm doing the exterior floor plan. So rather than kind of trying to figure out the size of the room right away, it's more like I'm placing the furniture to try and figure out the dimensions of the space and how big it needs to be. And I was really thankful that the size of these train cars actually ended up working out really well with the size of the train tracks. I measured out the train tracks that we had, and they ended up being 5 tiles wide if I sized them up once, which ended up being just enough for every single car in this game. So every car is exactly the same size, which is how it would normally be on a train. And I had a lot of fun doing this recreation. There are definitely a couple places that are a little bit closer to the game than others. The biggest limitation I had was the wallpaper and the wall decorations, and you'll see me kind of fiddling around with that basically throughout this entire build. You're already kind of seeing it in this space here, but the train itself in the game has this stunning wallpaper and wall paneling just basically throughout the entire thing, and each car has its own different styles. And a lot of the wallpaper that I end up using, this green one here is a great example, comes from the Vampires game pack, and that pack has perfect wallpapers for a build like this, like so Victorian, so Edwardian, perfect time period, perfect designs and colors. Like the deep, rich colors work really well for this, but they only have the full wallpaper. There isn't any wood paneling on the bottom half. And a lot of different places in the train have parts of the room that have full wallpaper and parts of the room that have half wallpaper and half paneling. So there were a lot of places where I kind of had to make sacrifices, and I had to decide, okay, am I going to go with full wallpaper? Am I going to go with full paneling? Or am I going to have to use a half and half version that doesn't look as good as I would like it to look? Because we do have a couple good base game half and half options for wallpapers, but the colors are extremely limited. It's basically only like creams and grays and light blue and light pink, and then sometimes a light brown, but we don't really have any of these deep greens, deep blues, deep reds that are very common on this train. So you'll see me struggling with wallpaper a little bit here and there, struggling to make the train look quite as ornate as it does in the game, because this is definitely an amazing location in the Nancy Drew series. It is so detailed, it's so stunning. Every train car, the ceilings are just amazing. When I was looking back at the screenshots for this game, I just had an even deeper appreciation for it because it's just so pretty. This is the area in the train where they have kind of like a kitchen, sort of. It's not a full kitchen by any means, but there is the kind of like the stove fireplace, and there's actually a little coffee area, which is something I didn't necessarily notice from the games. So I decided to make this a full little coffee and tea bar so that when the characters are on the train, on their expedition, they have snacks, they can get themselves a tea, they can get themselves a coffee, and all is well. There's not really a refrigerator, and there's not really a cooking utensil of any sorts, a cooking appliance or anything. There's a full bar, so they've got tea, coffee, and drinks, and they have no food. But I guess the idea is that they're able to make it to Copper Gorge, Colorado within a day, and then they can just get food when they're in the town. They can just bring food with them along, like sandwiches or whatnot, so I guess they don't necessarily need a kitchen. I just thought it was kind of funny that they only have beverages. So now we're moving on to this little area, which I was trying to recreate as closely as I possibly could. This is the area where Charlena Purcell hangs out for I think the entire game. Yeah, basically the entire game. But it's a really beautiful bar, and it has these curved islands with these marble, grayish kinds of countertops going all the way around. And I just couldn't get the bar size to work just right. Most of the bars that we had ended up being too big, and I kind of remedied this by making the doorway a little bit smaller than I wanted it to be. It still works okay, and it still pretty much matches the space, but I had to kind of fill it in with more counters that didn't quite look like the game but are kind of close to the game. I really wanted to use certain bar backs. Like if there was a bar back that came with this one from University with the stained glass, that would have been perfect, but unfortunately there isn't. So what I end up doing is kind of just making my own bar back by using the same kinds of counters that I used to surround the bar a little bit, and curving the countertop so it still gives that look. I wanted to make sure I had that painting there because Nancy can interact with it. I tried to make sure that I included as many interactables, things that Nancy looks at in the game, within the decoration scheme as well. I'm now also working on cluttering up these shelves to make them look like it's an actual functioning bar. I just tried to imagine the kinds of things that you would need at a bar station. So there's a bunch of jars of olives, there's some peppers, and then there's lemons and limes, and I think oranges I put up there as well, salt and pepper shakers, so you're making lots of fancy drinks. I do end up using custom content in this build with these glasses here, these like martini glasses, the wine glasses, and then the straight glasses. You can still download this even if you don't have that CC within your game. It's very easy to just go into the gallery and those items just won't appear, which is totally fine because the shelves are still primarily filled up. But I had those in my game and I was just like, you know what? I really want to use them because it's going to make it look even more like a bar. It'll look nice for the screenshots. So that's what I did. I also added in the lemonade maker and the fizzy drink maker. I gave Charlene her laptop. So again, this is like they're just about ready to go on this adventure. The cars just have to be put together and it's basically ready to go. So yeah, I put in Charlena's laptop there. It's not a functioning bar because your Sims can't get around to make the drinks. There's no room. So if you wanted to have this build, you would have to delete one of the counters so that the Sims could actually get back there. In real life, people could just, the bartender could just hop the counter, or there might be a part of the counter that maybe lifts up and that they could get in that way. But that's not possible in The Sims. For the outsides of the trains, I kept it kind of simple. We don't really see the outside of the train, and I'm imagining that the outside of the train is also pretty ornate. I know a lot of old trains actually were really pretty architecturally pleasing on the outsides of them. But it's also a pretty old train, and it's been sitting around for kind of a long time. And I also wasn't exactly sure what it would look like. I was limited on space on this lot. So I decided to just use this metal siding that we got with the Eco Lifestyle pack. And it does look like train car sidings. And then I do end up putting these little, I don't even know what they're called, but they're the little stations where you kind of hop from one train to the next. I made sure to put one of those on every single train so that you can see exactly where they would connect. But again, on the outside, I just kept very simple. All of them have the exact same kind of burnt red siding, and then they have kind of a simple roof on the top because I wasn't sure what it looked like, and I didn't want to get myself too overwhelmed with trying to figure all of that out. So now we're moving on to the sleeping car, which was kind of interesting. When you look at it in the game, the sleeping car is tiny. Like, these little rooms are so small, and there's a lot of people on this train, and they all need a place to sleep. And when I was thinking about it too, I was wondering, Camille and Jake, when they owned this train, probably just had the sleeping car as well, because none of their private quarters have a bed. They just have couches and stuff. So I'm trying to figure out on longer voyages, where were Camille and Jake supposed to sleep? Did they just sleep in these quarters? What I did with the quarters is, this is where I was trying to put in the what's it called? The brake. The brake that throws the whole train. Because again, I tried to put as many interactable things in there as possible. I also realized that I put the doors on the wrong side for each of the rooms. I got turned around with the directions. If you've watched my channel before, you know I get confused with directions. I'm very bad at them. My apologies, but the doors do end up being on the wrong side. It's not that big of a deal. They could easily be switched to the other side, but I just kind of forgot about that and didn't notice until I was taking screenshots. But either way, for the sleeping cars, what I did is I put little bunk beds in each one, just kind of makeshift bunk beds that I made out of the beds that we got from Get to Work. So they look kind of cheap, and they're actually the prison beds. They're the beds that came with the detective career specifically for the jail cells. So those are the beds that I end up using. But I think I end up including 8 beds. So there are enough beds for all of the characters. There is enough beds for all of them and the engineer, I believe. But again, I was just kind of confused. It's like, why don't Jake and Camille have a separate bedroom car? If this was a privately made train for them, unless they wanted to sleep in these teeny little sleeping cars, they certainly could, I suppose. I also wanted to make sure to include a functioning bathroom. So one of these bedrooms, one of the sleeping areas, I actually turn into a functioning bathroom. I don't know how this would have worked on an actual train. Like, would they have been able to have plumbing on the train? Probably not. But I don't know how they would have relieved themselves. Like, what do you do? I have no idea. But in The Sims, there needed to be a functioning bathroom anyway, and I'm sure on a modern train, when this train was renovated, they would include a functioning bathroom. They would be able to actually make that happen. So this one does have a functioning bathroom. There's just a little shower, little toilet, and a little sink, and now I'm working on getting all of the bunk beds situated. This was another car right away where I was like, I just can't get the wallpaper to look exactly how I want. And it's more not on the interior of these spaces, because we don't actually see the insides of the sleeping cars, but more on the outside. It's primarily paneling, and then there's kind of wallpapers around the sides, but it's weird because we have so many wallpapers in the game, and yet I felt so limited. And as far as architectural details, there's actually a lot of things that we can't accomplish. Like, you can't really do beautiful vaulted ceilings. You can't add in stained glass onto like walls, and we are really limited with stained glass in terms of windows. We only got them from one pack so far, the Realm of Magic game pack. We're really limited with column choices and the colors that they come in and the styles that they come in. And then all of the like extra kinds of architectural detailing. Things that I don't even know the names of, but the ways that you can decorate walls with different panels and different shapes and stuff, we just can't really accomplish that in The Sims. I can't do that on a wall. I can literally only do straight lines, and I can't do the beautiful kind of curved woodwork that's inlaid within this game. So that was a little bit disappointing. Hopefully it doesn't bother you guys too much. It's one of those things where I kind of just had to make creative choices based on the limitations of The Sims 4 and do my best to make this a functioning Sims build, as well as a close enough recreation, hopefully, of Jake Hurley's train. So yes, it looks like I was able to fit in 8 beds. I used the backside of these bookshelves to make it look like the headboard of each of the beds was connected to the walls, and then they're close enough to the walls, the feet of the beds are, that it looks like they would just kind of be nailed into the walls there. I included the brown shelves up there as well to kind of simulate luggage racks. I'm thinking a lot of my knowledge about old trains comes from 2 places. It either comes from Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon, or it comes from the Hogwarts Express. And in the Hogwarts Express, they have those luggage racks up there where you can put all of your luggage. So I assumed that in the sleeping cars, they probably would have that as well. I figured that would be kind of important, especially if this train is to be used for long voyages. We don't see any of the personal effects of any of the characters. They basically just kind of set up shop in whatever car that they feel most comfortable in, which is kind of fun. I like that idea a lot, but that ends up taking some of the personality of the characters out of it in just a little ways. So I'm imagining that they have to have some of their stuff around, and it would make sense if they put it on the luggage rack. So now you're seeing me kind of putting together the next 2 train tracks. It's a very finicky process because I had to kind of I had to build on top of one structure, and then I had to copy it, I had to pull it over, I had to lower it down to the right level. All of these are technically floating, and most of these you actually can't even get onto because the only one that has stairs is the first car, the one with the dining car. Essentially, is the only one that you can actually access. It would be very easy to add stairs onto the other ones so that you could access them. They're all ready for that, but I didn't want to include the stairs because those wouldn't actually exist in the game. Because the cars are all connected to one another realistically. So if you want to download this and make it a functioning build, you'll probably have to add some stairs to some of these other cars. And you might also notice that none of the cars have wheels. They're modern fancy trains that just kind of float in the air and are totally functional. No, they're not. I searched through the debug menu for quite a while and I could not find any train wheels at all. So I kind of just got to the point where I was like, hopefully my fellow detectives will understand that I couldn't find wheels, and hopefully they can use their imaginations and just kind of pretend that these trains have wheels. Maybe they're really small and they're just like in the middle of the train and you can't see them. Let's go with that. So now we're moving on to Camille's private car, and I love this car in the games. It's kind of got this mixture of blues and greens and teals. It has floral kind of decorations and lots of feminine energy, and it's also very spooky, which is the point because the train is rumored to be haunted by Camille's ghost, so of course it should have kind of a spooky feel to it. This was the first car where I was really like, we need more wood paneling options, because I basically ended up just having to go with the plain, a wallpaper that is more plain, essentially. I wanted to use this one because it has the really cool design on it from the Vampires pack, but alas, earwax. Alas, not really possible. I did love this carpet though. I thought the carpet looked basically exactly like the carpet in the game. I was super excited about that. It looks so good, that kind of teal-y green, and it's got a little bit of a worn look to it. So I was really excited about that. I put the tapestry on the wall there. I put the little end table with the puzzle box that Nancy needs to end up solving. It's not a very decorative puzzle box, but it is still a puzzle box because it's one of the interactable items. I put this little armchair here, and then on the armchair I'm going to end up putting it's a pile of presents, but it was the closest thing I could find to like a red and gold plaid box, which I think is Teddy Eberhardt is the doll that's supposed to go with that box. If you've played this game before, you know that a big part of it is finding and kind of putting clues together to which name goes with which doll, because Camille collected Victorian style type dolls. So I wanted to try and include as many references to that as possible. And now I'm adding in these columns here in an effort to give this room more architectural interest. It wasn't working out exactly how I wanted, but it gives it a little bit more depth than it would have had otherwise. So ultimately I end up being okay with it. I included the organ as well because it's the closest thing to a standard looking piano that we have. We have two other pianos in the game. One is a grand piano and one is an electronic piano. But just like a standard stand-up rectangular kind of style piano we do not have in the game, and I'm still a little bit confused as to why, because everyone that I know that has a piano, and we had one when I was growing up, it was just like your standard piano. Like, how many people actually have a grand piano? You know when you say a word so many times it starts to sound really funny to you? That just happened to me with the word piano. I said it so many times in a word, I'm like, what is this word? How many syllables do you have? How many letters do you have? What language did you come from? What language did piano come from? I feel like it has like some French or Italian sounds to it, but I don't know. If anyone knows where the word piano came from, let me know in the comments down below. You should also let me know, after you've seen all of the cars in this video, or perhaps you already know, which car in Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon or in this creation, or both, is your favorite? Like, where would you hang out and spend the most of your time? I'm adding in all of John Gray's ghost hunting equipment here. It looks so silly and so out of place, but that's kind of the point. So, good on you, John Gray. I think, let's see, where would I spend time? I mean, the caboose is pretty gorgeous, and I feel like it's kind of hidden and far away from everything. It's really beautiful and really soft. I do also really like how the dining car turned out in this build. I think the dining car might be my favorite car in terms of recreating it for this build. So in this build, I might hang out in the dining car, but in the game, I think I might hang out in the caboose. Yeah. So now we're moving on to Jake Hurley's private train here, and I was trying forever to find a good carpet to use. The one that they have is just, it looks like a really long runner, and eventually I was just like, okay, I guess I'll just do a really long runner. We have we have two of those in the game, so I might as well use them. They fit perfectly, it looks really nice, I was very happy with how they looked, and then I just kind of used a wood flooring for the other part of the hallway to fit in the rest of the like, you have to move from one place in one car to the other, so the rest of that kind of hallway, that space. So now we're working on the interior of Jake Hurley's private car. This is where the one, the only Tino Balducci hangs out. Oh, Tino. If you if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you might know that I have kind of this like pattern of thinking about characters that I love to hate. It's like the characters that are so annoying that you just hate them. But the fact that you hate them so much means that they're written really well, which means I love them. I love to hate them. Tino is probably the king of that category. Him and Richard Topham. They're just like the most annoying people in all of the games. And yet, that kind of means that they're good characters, because if they can make me feel that much, then kudos to them and kudos to the writers for coming up with those two characters, because they are frustrating individuals. So I'm working on this little alcove back here, trying to find the right columns was a struggle and a half, and then trying to find a nice detailed, I have no idea what those are called, a nice detailed thing to connect the two columns. Trying to find that was really difficult because the one that they have in the game is kind of like gold. It has a lot of cool details on it and a lot more colors. It's not just plain wood columns, but we're limited, so I did what I had to do. And this is basically where Jake has kept a lot of his mining tools. We don't have mining in The Sims 4, so I made them gardening tools. And I put a lantern here as kind of a reference to Buell's lantern, which is a big part of the game. So if you've played that, hopefully you enjoyed that little reference. But then I just filled it up with those gardening tools, put in this desk. We do actually have a cat statue that looks very, very similar to the one in the game. So I was super excited to use that. That was a lot of fun. And I do ultimately like how this room turned out. I wish that we had a wallpaper that it was a little bit more of a rich blue color rather than kind of this like lighter blue, but it's pretty close. And ultimately, I think the furniture style in this one works out quite well. There also end up being a couple of books on this desk that Tino has out. I don't think that he's reading them. I don't know why the books are there, probably just for show. He probably like just flips through the books and pretends like he's reading them so that he looks smarter than he actually is. Oh, Tino. I found this beautiful big rug, which looks fairly similar to the one in the game. I do include a chess table in here as well to simulate the Leaping Lizards game, and in Camille's car, to simulate the little horse game that jumps over the hurdles, I added in a card table. So the idea of a game being in those locations are still there. Both of those games do require a table as well, so I was just like, might as well make them functional tables and give Sims some activity for this space. And now I'm adding in kind of, it's almost like this display station over here, where there's bookshelves and kind of an area, I'm guessing, where Jake would store a lot of things. And I wish we had a good periodic table that I could have used on the wall here, but we actually don't. We do have a poster that kind of is supposed to look a little bit like a periodic table of elements, but it's very modern looking and not at all the right vibe for a place like this. So I just used a older style of artwork that I thought looked better. There's also a photo on this desk, and we don't have very many little photo frames that you can sit right away on desks, so I just used this little butterfly one. So Jake Hurley likes butterflies. Nothing wrong with that. Butterflies are wonderful. I went on a hike yesterday and saw so many monarch butterflies, which was so fun to see. I also saw another orange one, and I'm not quite sure what kind it was, but it was really pretty. Are swallowtails a thing? Those are yellow, though, I think. I don't know. I saw a pretty butterfly, and I liked it. That's my favorite part of going on hikes, is trying to see what kinds of wildlife I can find. There's so many deer where I live, and like rabbits and squirrels and songbirds and butterflies and just all sorts of great nature. So that's definitely my favorite part of hiking. I was struggling forever here to figure out why I couldn't get the train tracks to place properly. I eventually figured out that when you have the foundations floating like this, it actually is more like a second level to the house. It's treating it like a second level and not a first level. So once I figured that out, I was able to get the train tracks back in place and everything was hunky-dory again. Just took me a little bit of a while. That's the fun parts of these builds and why I leave everything in, so you guys can see all of my struggles. Because building in The Sims 4 can be a struggle sometimes. Ultimately, a very rewarding struggle. For those of you that like to build, I'm curious to know what are your like favorite styles to build in The Sims 4. I personally, in my like regular game time, love seeing rustic and like suburban type homes. The ones that like I can imagine myself having, I think are the ones that are so fun for me to build personally or to see in the games. I watch a lot of YouTubers that do such good iterations of those styles of builds, and it's just so cool to see all of the talent in the building community. It's just so much fun. So you guys should let me know, what's your favorite style of builds? In real life too, I love to look at like old Victorian style houses and old Tudor style houses. I think those are really, really pretty. Like in my dream world, if I could have a really historical Tudor style house or a Victorian house that wasn't haunted, then I'd be a happy camper. Because let's face it, all Victorian style houses are haunted. I haven't stayed in one that isn't. Or at least that feel very, very creepy. So now we are working on the, I guess the mechanical car of Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. And if you've played the game, you know that this is just kind of a weird little car. You have to suspend kind of a lot, excuse me, you have to kind of suspend your belief a little bit when you come into this car, because the entirety of the train is this beautiful time capsule of Victorian excellence. And then you come into this train and it's like an industrial mishmash, I can't talk, an industrial mishmash of pipes and machines and things that can move in ways that I feel like were not possible in the Victorian era. It's just very strange, but it's crucial to solving the mystery. So I just basically filled it in with as many giant pipey type things as I could find. I utilized the debug menu a fair amount for this. This golden thing is supposed to simulate the table where the map rolls out. The juice fizzing station over there is supposed to symbolize the like the projector thing, the round thing with all of the the air pumps is supposed to symbolize the part where you insert the hammer and the lamp. And eventually this fan thing is supposed to symbolize where you put all of the gems. So that's what all of those are for. I just trying to kind of put in a mishmash of a bunch of things because I knew there was no way I was going to make it look exactly like the game itself. So I just kind of had fun throwing as many industrial things as I could find in the catalog into that room. So enjoy the mechanical car. And now we are moving on to the very last car in the train, and then we'll do a little bit of like detail work on the outside of these builds and kind of put some plants and some trash and stuff around the train cars because, again, I imagine that they've been at this train station for quite a time. But this is another one of Camille's private cars. It's supposed to be like the caboose of the train. It's at the very end. There's a door. Don't ask me why. Apparently you can just hop right off the end of the train. That actually might be another good place to put stairs. So you could put, you could add on an end standing station at the end of that and then put some stairs. So that would be another good way to make this a little bit more accessible. I was actually surprised that these couches can kind of come into an L shape together. Very few couches in the game can actually do that without clipping, and surprisingly, this very ornate base game couch can do that without having the weird kind of fuzzy pattern all the time. So I was kind of impressed. The game has this really beautiful, it's an L-shaped couch, but it's curved. So it's more like a U, I suppose, but not a full U, just kind of the curvy part. And we have literally nothing like that in the game at all. Nothing at all like that. So I just put these beautiful L-shaped couches. I wanted to put a little mirror on this storage, this dresser, but I kind of realized we don't have any little tabletop mirrors like you would use for a vanity, and I thought that would actually be really cute to include in this room, but we just don't have it. So then I decided to use more like plants and feminine decorations. We don't really see this kind of area all that much, so I just decided to decorate it with what I imagined might be in that spot, and I figured it would be more like vases, a little bit of plants, this old lantern kind of thing. and just fill it in a little bit. I did enjoy the idea of the stacked books too on the suitcase. I like that a lot as well. The radiator I thought made a lot of sense. I'm actually kind of surprised that we don't see more radiators in the game, but maybe it's a fire hazard. I don't know. It's certainly a possibility. Couple of books, because Lori, who likes to hang out in this car, loves reading romance novels. Ends up being kind of a fun little subplot in the game related to those romance novels. I was not liking how bright this car was, so I do eventually change up the lights a little bit because it was just too bright. This car is supposed to feel a lot more like dark and spooky than it does, so I work on fixing that in a little bit. We do have a dance floor that looks very similar to the one in the game, so voila, perfect dance floor. So Nancy can do her chaussettes, chatoyants, or something like that. Chatoyants, chaussettes, something along those lines. This I thought was hilarious. So Camille in the game collects dolls, but we don't really have that many different dolls in the game, but what we do have a lot of are My Sim statues. So rather than having 12 dolls, I decided to give her 12 My Sim statues, and I tried to use ones that looked as vintage as possible. Like I took out DJ Candy because she's wearing headphones, and I took out Chaz McFreely because he has like a rock and roll t-shirt on. So I tried to keep them looking more vintage, but in the Sims version, Camille collected My Sim statues, so she's got 12 of those. I can't remember exactly how many dolls are in the game, but I think it's close to 12. So that was the idea there. And then this half of the car needed a little bit of extra decoration as well. There are a couple interactable items on this half of the car as well, so you'll see me adding those in a little bit as well. We'll be coming up on the screenshots here very shortly, so I'll go ahead and kind of start summing things up. I do hope that you guys enjoyed this build. Again, I know that this is definitely a fan favorite for many, so I hope that you feel like this build did the game justice. I'm glad that I found a way to make this one happen. Having the train tracks was definitely helpful for that. So feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think about this build. Do you like it? Which car would you stay in? All of those sorts of good things. If you liked this build, or just like the video in general, please feel free to give it a little bit of a thumbs up. That engagement helps us get recommended to other fellow detectives to help grow the channel and grow our fun little YouTube family, so I really appreciate that. And if you're not subscribed yet, please feel free to do so and hit the notification bell. Like I said, I love expanding our little community of fellow detectives. You guys are always so amazing, and it's so fun to get to play and experience these games with you. We also do have Instagram, so if you want to follow the channel on Instagram, it's WizardKittenYT. All of this information is in the description box down below as well. We do have a Discord that you can come join if you would like. We have a lot of fun over there, just chatting and hanging out. And yeah. Oh, my Sims 4 gallery ID is Spirit Scarlet 100. You do have to check custom content, because even if I don't put custom content in builds, which I very rarely do, again, this one just has those glasses, and there's actually a phonograph in here too. Even if I don't use custom content, which I almost never do, all of my builds get flagged as having custom content just because of the ones that I have in the game. So click the Show Custom Content button on if you're looking for my content. The link for that is in the description box as well. Just adding a couple of final touches here by putting kind of trash around the place, giving some overgrown plants. There's a couple extra train cars and cargo containers and just industrial kind of looking things around all of the trains, just to make it look a little bit more realistic and like it's been here for a very long time. And we're moving on to the screenshots here in just a couple seconds, so thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.